Captain, we have them. We've established Transporter Lock, the Star Trek Discovery podcast. Join Ken and Sabriel each week as they explore strange new episodes, seek out new plots and new characters, and boldly go where no podcast has gone before.
Hello and welcome to Transporter Lock episode number 95 for Monday, March 7th, 2022. I'm your co-host, Chief Engineer Ken Gagney. Guess who's joining me?
Oh, sorry, I was just creepily watching others on my ship from my portable Tantalus field. I'm Captain Sabriel Maston.
Life in your ivory hyperfield. It must be so nice up there.
Oh my god. This episode, I can't wait to talk about this.
Well, let's do that then. We are here to talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 11, Rosetta, which aired the same day as Picard Season 2, Episode 1, The Stargazer, which we just reviewed on yesterday's podcast. So if you want to listen to our Picard discussion, go back one episode in our podcast archives. But we are going to continue concurrently reviewing both series as they air.
Two things about that. Like we recorded on Thursday afternoon as the show aired, and because just schedules, you weren't able to edit it until like yesterday or this morning or yesterday. And I'm like, a lot of the things that we talked about, others are like, wow, look at this thing I discovered. I'm like, of course, the time we discussed it, like right away, we aren't able to get it out there.
So are you saying that people observed things that we overlooked?
Yeah. No. Observed things that we pointed out. And I was like, of course.
I would have loved to have been on the cutting edge of that, but we basically went from recording that show to me cooking dinner for some friends who were hosting me for the week to watching Discovery. And then Friday I had to work and then go out for lunch with a coworker and then visit a friend in the town for dinner. And then Saturday I drove 8 hours from Omaha to Chicago.
Busy.
Yeah, I myself was on pins and needles. I was like, we could have been on the cutting edge of this Picard, and we weren't. And even now, this Discovery review is coming out a little bit late, but I think our listeners are patient.
Tying it back to Discovery, I made the mistake of watching Picard and then Discovery. I wish I would immediately. I wish I would have waited.
Because they're so tonally different?
That was almost literally the words I was going to use. They were so tonally different. I wish I would have given it a few hours to digest. But you know what? I watched it again this morning, 4 days later, whatever days later. I don't know. My opinion didn't really change either.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you nonetheless got to enjoy them both. And you watched both episodes twice, as always, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Cool. So let's talk about Rosetta. They have now crossed the galactic barrier. They are outside the Milky Way. And just like I predicted last week, not that it was, a very risky bet, this episode is focused entirely on the planet that is 2 light years from the hyperfield, which they expected would be species 10C's homeworld. And that does seem to be the case.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, before we really dive in, do you have like a 1 or 2 word feeling without any caveats or anything? Just like, what was the mood you kind of walked away with?
Love. It's love.
Wow, I was bored out of my mind.
Boredom. I wonder which complex hydrocarbon boredom is.
All right, let's dive in. Yeah, they went to that gas. I was confused when they said this is a gas giant planet with a surface. I'm like, what? And then I Googled it. And apparently they have found some since in the last 20 years or so. Or ones they suspect. Because gas giants aren't really known for having a surface.
I thought that the planet had become more substantial after being struck by meteors, but that wouldn't make sense because people or animals or some sort of alien species were living there with buildings, so there had to have already been a surface.
Yeah, so in real life, some scientists have found planets they think are gas giants that actually have surfaces. Like, okay, cool. Now we can put that into Star Trek. And does that mean that... Then I was like, well, that means that maybe... whatever 10C here are like beings that are light and float around?
Well, the size of the bones that they found down on the planet made me wonder what other big species we've seen that these could be. The only thing that came to mind were whales from Star Trek 4, but the probe that came to Earth communicated through whale song, not pheromones.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make sense. So I don't think it's that.
I would say not 100% out, but feels implausible.
Yeah, I think we have floated that idea in previous episodes of this podcast without evidence, and I would say the evidence now points to it not being that. But you're right, I would not say it's conclusive.
Yeah, it's one of those things like, is this something we've seen before? And I've seen talk of like Discovery people trying to make something that we've never seen before, but it doesn't mean it's not an alien we haven't seen before.
Well, I saw a tweet, I think from somebody on the production crew, who said, "You would not believe the secrets that we have been able to keep up until now." And so I don't know what sort of big reveals we should expect in the final 2 episodes.
Yeah, we don't have much to go here. And this episode I could have done without. There were parts I liked, but man, overall, I could not stay focused on this one.
You don't think that it contributed to moving the narrative forward?
No, I saw there were parts I liked, but overall, I was bored out of my mind.
And well, why is that?
Just nothing interesting happened here. We got creepy, super creepy Book, who's got his little spy feel. Sure, he's a agent or whatever, former guy who ran things. What are they called again? Courier, yeah. And so cool. He's got to sneak around, but he has this thing. This whole contrived thing of having to hide the shuttle on Disco just felt weird to me. Sneaking around Discovery without being detected with their, object of the week. This will dull from the sensors. We got to dull this. We have a sentient ship, which all of us, we haven't heard from Zora much for weeks, really. Mm-hmm. She was a big part of an episode or two, and all of a sudden, gosh, I was just so not into this one. Book sneaking out of the dark on President Ndoye, and sending a terrible text message like, "It's Tarina, come to this deck that's no one's on, come alone." I mean, like, in all caps. God, the Book and Tarka scene here, just, I hated him.
When you said Book was creepy, are you referring to him solely coming out of the dark, or also the fact that he was spying on his girlfriend?
Both. Both.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, has definitely crossed the Rubicon. I feel like he is doing more and more questionable things. And I was especially disappointed in the agreement he and Nadoya came to, because she, even though she is frustrated with the current course of action, she said, whatever you, Book, and Tarka do has to be a backup to the diplomatic mission. And Book said, agreed. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. Let's back up, guys. Book, you agreed to a diplomatic initiative previously, and Ruan Tarka ignored that. What makes you think he won't do it again? And Nadoya, you saw that happen.
Right?
So why are you asking them to do it again?
Yeah, that's just, some of the stuff just didn't make sense or feel right for what these characters would do, or just bleh.
I mean, I know Nadoya represents Earth, and when we first saw Earth in Season 3, they were not part of the Federation, so this is a new relationship. It might still be tenuous, and she might be bristling with the constraints of it. I get that. But this is such a precarious situation that they really need to be presenting a unified front, and listening to these people who have done so much damage. They are the ones who put the DMA in Earth's path. Why would you ever trust them again?
Yeah. Also, they keep saying debris from the DMA is heading towards Earth and Navarre. But they don't say like the DMA is. So that means like gravity and all that stuff is just launching crap into space. How can they stop it at this point? Even if they stop the DMA? Like, I don't know.
Well, I have 2 questions about that. One is, I think similar to when we saw gravity waves attack that space station that Tilly was helping people evacuate from. I think that's the kind of debris they're talking about. The DMA itself didn't hit the space station, but you saw nonetheless how much damage it did.
Yeah, and then so the debris is still going to come either way, right?
You mean even if they destroy the DMA?
Yeah, because gravity and physics, it doesn't just stop.
Oh, I see what you mean. If you throw a baseball and then you kill the pitcher, the baseball still goes.
And a curious but apt analogy.
I'm not condoning murder of athletes. I'm just first thing that came to mind.
I mean, science, time, whatever. They can explain it away. They'll figure out a way to reverse the polarized Hall emissions and whatever. But it just like, I don't know if you thought about this before you said it.
Maybe I guess they meant the DMA is days away from creating debris that would hit Earth.
Yeah, I mean, it's like borderline picking nits that I don't usually like to do, but it felt weird.
And debris is a funny word for a gravity wave.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
Also, they now know that a catalytic converter or whatever can destroy the DMA. Would they try that again? I mean, like, it did present a temporary reprieve from the original DMA. Like maybe they would think that, oh, let's just throw one at this DMA and see if maybe they don't put a newer, bigger one back in the same spot again. Maybe that was just a fluke.
And Tarka's whole plan here of like, we're going to just hide in the back of Discovery and go in there and just destroy the thing. Easy peasy, right? No.
Right.
I don't know.
No, it's so easy. I know they have no plan. He and Ruan have no plan. They don't know what the power source is. They don't know where it is. They don't know what's between them and it. But yeah, once they sneak through the hyperfield, it's going to be that easy.
It's funny. I will give my D&D players crap for overthinking a plan, and half the time I encourage them to come up with a half-baked plan like Ruan's here, just to get the ball rolling instead of sitting here talking about it too much. It's kind of just different. It just amused me. The different context there. I wish they would just go and do it and figured it out. And here I'm like, they're overanalyzing or they're underanalyzing it. I'm yelling at Ruan about.
Yeah, I mean, they would need to have another isolytic weapon to destroy. Well, I guess they don't want to destroy the power source. They want to capture it.
Yeah.
And that's even more precarious. I mean, destruction is easy. You just drop a bomb, but to actually go in and grab it and retain it for yourself, what's their plan?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just go in there, do it. Duh, just do the thing.
Oh, right.
Yeah, easy.
That's like I'm staying with a mutual friend of ours right now, and one year he was on a volunteer organization that was trying to raise funds, and they were trying to sell raffle tickets. And he asked the person who was running the fundraiser, well, what strategies do you recommend for selling these raffle tickets? And the guy said, just do it. And that's not helpful. Like, okay, if you want to quote Shia LaBeouf, that's fine, but it doesn't help you actually get it done. Like, what are the strategies? Do you pick up the phone? Do you go door to door? Do you send letters? What phrasing do you use? Do you offer incentives? And similarly, like, how are we going to capture the power source? We're just going to do it. Like, okay. Ruan Tarka, one of the brightest minds in the Federation of the 32nd century, is just going to do it. Great.
Yep.
Good job. Yeah, I mean, however, the part about them attaching to the hull, that is not unusual. I mean, we've seen that in Star Wars, Star Trek. Everybody's done that a couple times.
Yeah, even Enterprise. Like it's cloak and you sit on their ship or hide behind their ship. This is old. Hide behind the trash suit.
Yeah. So were you frustrated by?
No.
I mean, you said you didn't like it. Is it because it's unoriginal?
No, not at all. It made it cool, but it just didn't feel cool at all. Like, okay, sure. Like, you could have just cloaked as well. Like,
I mean, I guess they were concerned about the hyperfield closing before they could follow in.
Yeah.
With it. My disappointment was that, as you alluded to earlier, Zora couldn't detect them, and they said that eventually Zora would figure it out. But also, it assumes that life signs are the only means to tell that somebody's there, and that Zora doesn't also have security cameras?
Yeah. That adds into, like, when Zora noticed President Ndoye going to the deck that's vacant, like, why would Ndoye be doing that?
That's a good point. She has life signs, and they're not masked.
Yeah, so
who was she talking to?
Yeah, it's just weird. Maybe that'll come up next week. This feels like a half episode.
I agree that Zora is probably going to play some sort of a role. I don't think we've seen the last of her, but I feel like they keep building her up, like this sphere data, the dots, everything, and then they don't do anything with it. And
Yeah.
I'm waiting for some sort of a payoff, and I don't know that it's going to come this season, but I sure hope there is one eventually.
Yeah, they just kind of started that whole thing and then dropped it.
Yeah. Like, oh, we have a sentient AI that is prohibited from being integrated with Starfleet computers. We're going to make an exception for this one so that she can make steamed bananas?
Thinking possibly another reference to Lower Decks.
Wait, what was the reference?
The steamed bananas, possibly. In like the season or the series premiere, there was a thing where the computer was like banana hot and kept making banana hot.
I don't remember that. I just pulled up the Memory Alpha page for steamed bananas, and it only mentions. Well, I guess in Lower Decks it wasn't steamed; it was just hot. So what if I pull up the page for bananas? Because Memory Alpha is going to have a page for bananas. Here we go. Bananas were a fruit from Earth with a sweet taste. Wait,
why is it? I mean, in reality, we have one variety left. I guess they're just assuming that they're gone now.
So that's weird. Here we go. I was searching for the word Lower Decks. I should have been searching for LD. In 2380, Ensign Brad Boimler was repairing a malfunctioning replicator aboard the USS Cerritos that was stuck dispensing hot bananas when Ensign Devana Tendi reported to him as her orientation liaison. And this was the episode Second Contact, which, to your point, was Season 1, Episode 1. So yeah, this is... I don't know if it's a reference per se, but it's definitely a recurring gag.
Yeah.
And I myself have been saying the animated series keep referencing the live action ones. We're not seeing the inverse occur. Finally, hot bananas are canon.
I guess it's related to production schedules, probably. When can we squeeze these references in?
And also the fact that the animated series are very different from the live action shows.
They are. Like borderline canon. Is it real? Is it not? But anyway.
That is actually a very apt description. Borderline canon. I like that. Because some of the stuff that goes on in Lower Decks, like how do you justify that? Like even Riker, he is so different between the live action series and the animated series. And he is thematically appropriate in each one, but how do you reconcile that these are the same person?
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah. I'll just go on.
But back to Discovery. So they were on the planet and they experienced a variety of emotions. Apparently the species C10, at least 1,000 years ago, was able to leave behind memories as hydrocarbons. So not only do they convey emotions, but actually they were all experiencing the same hallucinations about the destruction of their world.
Yeah, it's a neat idea. I mean, a lot of, like I said at the start, like even if I didn't like the episode, there's a lot of neat ideas or neat things here, and this is I like that idea, the concept of showing emotions that way. Right away, it reminded me of this rarely used or seen. It might even only be in the books. I don't know, it's in one adventure, but anyway, this ancestry in D&D called the Saurial. They don't have a language, but they speak or communicate with scent and pheromones.
Yes, they first appeared in the novel Azure Bonds, Curse of the Azure Bonds.
So
the main character was Alias, and she went around with this saurial companion, I believe, named Dragonbait.
Dragonbait, yes, because Dragonbait appears with Artis Cimber on his search for the Ring of Winter in some of the adventures.
See? Yes.
I won't go into that tangent, but this is familiar to me, and it's like, oh, this is a neat concept. I don't think we've really seen in Star Trek. We've seen things have pheromones and...
Sure, like Orions.
Yeah, but to actually communicate this way solely, I guess we don't know that yet, but you get the idea. In this way.
Yeah, it's surprising that it would take them over 800 episodes to create an alien species that communicates through smell.
Yeah. I mean, we get ones with the, we get speak through metaphors. We get speaking through interpretive dance. but to have pheromones. It's like, wow, all this time and it's barely been touched on.
Interpretive dance, was that Enterprise?
Yeah, with the Archer had to saw some logs to apologize
Yes.
for
Porthos.
peeing on a tree.
Yes, that was great. You know what? After we're done recording this, I'm going to go look up that scene because I've only ever watched DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise once each when they aired. I've never gone back and rewatched any of them, but some of those episodes left indelible memories and impressions. And the one of Archer with his shirt off and a chainsaw apologizing for his dog's urination, that is something you don't forget. Star Trek at its best.
Yes. There were dead floating things on the planet that looked like they had been alive at some point.
Are you referring to something other than the dust?
Yeah, inside the chamber, a little bit out, but mostly inside the chamber. There was like, they very loosely looked like squid, just floating, like bloopers without the eyes.
Oh, bloopers from Mario Brothers. Huh.
But they were floating. No one questioned them, and you'd see them just like bobbing up and down.
Wait a minute. Bloopers, they exist in the Mushroom Kingdom, and Discovery moves through the mycelial network.
Hold on, I'll get the red strings. Hold on.
It's a conspiracy, I tell you.
Detmer's first away mission?
Okay, first of all, she is the crap, as they said. I totally agree. And this was her first away mission?
That's what she tweeted. A baby's first away mission. And a picture of herself.
Wow. I mean, I remember the actor who plays Reese tweeted a photo of Detmer in her suit, and he said, "Wow, looking good, Detmer." And I didn't realize that one of the reasons for that was not only does she look amazing, but also that we'd never seen her like that before.
Yeah.
So wait, why? Oh, because she had to pilot the very boringly named shuttlecraft. It's not like she was going as head of security or anything.
Right.
Do they have a head of security? They keep losing their heads of security.
Yeah, it's like the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. Right. You get a new one every season.
Okay, so that's why Detmer was there. Culber, Saru speaks 100 languages, and Burnham is a xenoanthropologist. And they all went, they all walk into a bar.
Right. You bring up a good point. I brought up my friend Shar ages ago about Voyager and security. Because Tuvok, he's head of security, but goodness, does he... things always go wrong no matter what. And then I was like, well, no, Shar, it makes sense. This is a science ship, a bunch of nerds. They're not going to put much for security on here. Voyager was never meant to go out there. They don't need science or security. They're just a bunch of nerds. What are they going to do?
Right.
Like, quit partying or quit studying until 2 a.m.? I mean,
they were sent to capture a Maquis ship. You would think that they'd have some security.
Yeah, but you get the idea. It's like, and then how do these? Then I was thinking, like, the grander scheme of things. Like, why is security such a big thing on a lot of these ships? But they always seem to have security officers, no matter what, even though they would be bored out of their minds if it weren't for a ship that was on TV every week.
Right. Well, it's kind of like the John Scalzi book, Red Shirts. Have you read that?
No, but we talked about it here before.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to keep asking you if you've read it until you read it.
But anyway, it's a tangent that's kind of quasi-related, but like of Discovery not having a security officer.
Now, they were, as we mentioned, experiencing all the same hallucinations once they were down on the alien planet.
Yeah, everyone tripping together.
Did you figure out before they did what the cause was?
Yeah, they kept zooming in on the blue stuff, and it kept happening right after they touched the blue stuff. Where the camera was showing, like Saru steps on blue stuff. Oh, he's having a thing, and then Michael goes and sees him on a wall and touches it, and then she starts going and.
See, I missed those connections. I didn't realize that Burnham was touching something. And with Saru, my expectation was that he was reverting to an earlier Kelpian form who's scared of everything. And even he himself said that he had not experienced fear like that or the coming of death in a long time. And maybe the show was intentionally leading me to believe it was unique to him. But then when Culber experienced it, I was like, wait, is it contagious? Did he get it from touching Saru? And even the rest of them said to Detmer, stay far away from us. We don't want you catching whatever we have. So even they thought there was the possibility that it was contagious.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame you for missing I mean, the Colbert one was subtle. You just think what he's touching him, but the Michael one, those inside scenes were so dark. I mean, they're trying to convey your inside, of course, but the lighting on a lot of TV is so dark, and so it was harder to see some things.
Yeah, if you have one of those TVs, what's it called, like ultra high def UHD, that I may be getting the acronym wrong, but it has like really rich, dark, vibrant blacks. So like I think what happens is traditional TVs, when a pixel is supposed to be black, it lights up with the black color. And with newer TVs, that pixel simply doesn't light up at all. So it actually is black. And that results in a better picture.
Interesting. I knew there was a tech, but I didn't know how it worked. That's neat. But yeah,
well, again, don't quote me on that.
Right. But it's a general idea.
Yeah, the last time I bought a television was 2011. And the last time I owned a television was 2019. So what do I know?
Yeah. But I mean, that's a problem with TV too. Audio and video. Like, you can get some really beautiful video, but audio is also kind of terrible. Or how many times, even in this, watching Star Trek, I have to crank it up if I'm listening to them talk and turn it down if there's any action on the screen.
You know, I vastly prefer watching shows without subtitles. I find them very distracting. However, what I find more distracting than subtitles is having to rewind to figure out what they said.
Yeah.
And so part of this I have learned is environmental. It's not the production, it's where I'm watching it. Because I travel from Airbnb to Airbnb, so my environment changes every 6 weeks. And sometimes I need subtitles on, and sometimes I don't. And I think it's because it's the quality of the TV and the sound system. And sometimes, however, it does seem to be like the show. I remember I was in one apartment for 2 years. I was actually living there, not as a nomad. And I was watching the TV show Heroes, and I had to have subtitles on for that show. I was watching a lot of other shows at that time, didn't have subtitles on for any of them. It was just Heroes. So I don't know. Maybe Discovery is one of those shows, or maybe it's just my TV or your TV. I don't know.
There's also a greater. I won't get into much further than that, but I've seen a lot of discussions of audio is a lot of the shows the last thing to consider, and there's not much money for it. And so there's like, oh, whatever, you get
you get what you get, and you don't get upset.
Yep. So the point being, what started all this is you could not be blamed for missing something that happened in that cavern because it was so damn dark.
Yeah, I think we're talking about similar things, how there is a lack of visual acuity and also audio fidelity. And so sometimes subtle things get missed. And I appreciate that's not my fault, because nothing ever is.
Yeah.
I mean, I am an American after all.
Programmable matter.
Did that come up again?
Yep. Well, we can't. Why didn't our suits get it? Oh, hold on. I can just program the programmable matter so it blocks it again.
See, Michael emphasized more than once that their environmental suits would filter out anything like that. Well, that's why I thought it can't be the dust, and then it ended up being the dust. I mean, they even said like their tricorders were picking up no psionic energy. I'm pretty sure they said that.
I don't remember.
That's a really cool thing for a tricorder to be able to pick up.
Oh, I do remember that now. Yes.
So, like, just in case Telosians were on planet, they could tell just by scanning for psionic energy.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yep. Planet. I mean, cool. The nursery thing and everyone tripping together and having that emotional moment. That was a neat thing. I like the idea of everyone just like allowing themselves a moment to find contentedness.
Yeah.
To feel content and safe.
When Culber felt it and he said, oh, it feels like my parents or something. And then Detmer gasped. And I was like, oh no, Detmer has never felt that. And then a moment later, that's exactly what she alluded to. And I was like, oh, that made me feel even worse for her. However, on the shuttlecraft back to Discovery, she starts to apologize. Yep. And Burnham says, don't you dare finish that sentence or I'll demote you. And then I gotta disagree with what Burnham said next, which was, it's okay to lose control for 5 minutes. No, it is not when there is an alien artifact about to destroy your homeworld. Like 5 minutes counts.
Yes and no. I don't think she meant in the grander scheme of things. But, I mean, if you want to focus on that moment, like, you got work to do and so much time to do it, I see what you mean.
Yes. I mean, just like how the Admiral admonished them, don't screw it up. Make this trip count.
They spent a lot of time. They kind of jumped over it. But right away, they open with justifying why Captain and First Officer are going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a lot of talking, and Burnham never once said, every minute we spend talking about our crew configuration is another minute that the DMA gets closer to destroying Earth, Navarre, and Titan.
Yeah. A lot of time is spent here. I don't know. It'll probably be justified. I mean, it will be. They'll figure a way to make it work, but I don't know if I believe them in the actual moment either. Even if I know as a viewer, it's the right thing to do, I don't know if she had a strong enough argument.
If President Rillick had an argument
if Michael
for bringing Saru on the mission?
To go on this mission. I agree with it. I see it story-wise. I just don't think they had a good enough, I don't think Michael said the right words to be convincing.
And on one hand, they came back with invaluable information, which justifies the away mission. On the other hand, one of the things I learned in a undergraduate psychology class is that you cannot evaluate a decision by its results.
Yeah.
You have to base the wisdom of a decision on the information you had available to you at the time to make that decision. So, for example, let's say that I take all my retirement funds and I go to the casino and I put it on the roulette wheel and I bet it on black, and I immediately have a 48% chance of winning. It doesn't matter what number or color comes up on the roulette wheel. I've already made a bad decision. Like, I might end up doubling my money, and that's great, but I am making a decision based on odds that are against me, and that therefore is a bad decision.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, just because I think it was probably the right thing to do, I don't think she justified it the right way.
Yeah, if they had information available to them that justified this decision, it may not have been clearly communicated.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, she's a xenoanthropologist. She's used to talking to humans, not aliens. So, or vice versa. Anyway.
President Rillick, addressing down Dr. Harai, a guy who's had 2 lines.
Yeah, I mean,
it felt weird, out of place.
Dr. Harai, I previously in this very podcast referred to him as an admiral. Is he?
He is. He's got 2 stripes.
So he is an admiral.
Isn't that lieutenant?
Oh, okay. Okay. Because if he was an admiral, I was wondering how he got so high up without anybody ever speaking to him about his bedside manner. I mean, is this news to him? Does he not know that he comes across differently from his peers?
Like in the short trek of dude what plays Archer, with the triples.
Oh, not Captain Archer. Yes. The trouble with Phil or whatever.
You go so far in life without some agent people go so far in Starfleet without having to work under someone.
Okay. I mean, I kind of like how Dr. Harai breaks the tension of the moment, but apparently it had an effect on Nadoya, and I didn't even notice that. Did you?
The camera zoomed in on her for a second, but yeah.
I mean, I certainly don't agree with Dr. Harai's long-term view of whether or not we worry about tomorrow, it will come nonetheless. No, you still need to take action to shape tomorrow, today. And so you can't just dismiss whatever is going to happen today. But at the same time, everything he has said has been fine by me. And so if that's how President Rillick wants to spend her final moments before the DMA hits her home planet, fine. But, at least we got to see that crossword puzzle still exists in the future.
Ancient Earth. Oh, I forgot. It's not the stripes on their neck that show their rank. It's the little pips on their badge.
Okay.
And he has 2 full ones. Lieutenant junior grade is 1 black, 1 gold.
Okay.
Oh, man. It's very subtle. You have to live in this world and know to watch out if you need to salute this person.
And you never know if they've just been having street corn or not.
All right.
It's very confusing. Well, was that a 3D crossword puzzle?
Yeah, it was.
That's kind of cool. I want to play one of those. Obligation. Let's see. Oh, we didn't talk about Ruan Tarka in this episode.
Just touched on it, but
So, well, the only important thing he did for me in this episode was get caught by Jett Reno.
yep, and then take her hostage.
And I would like to see it spelled out how he got from that scene to the other, because I didn't see him carrying a weapon. I don't know on how he was able to capture her. I mean, other than maybe he just like jumped at her and hit his comm badge to transport back to the ship. But I don't know.
Apparently, it's irrelevant to how he got her.
I mean, I'm sure. I suspect we're going to see or hear something about it, because the way she greeted Book, like, hey, nothing like coming home to an unexpected hostage, huh? It implies that Book is going to ask, what the hell's going on here? How did this happen? What were you thinking? What did you do? And one of those questions is going to get answered.
Yes.
So I think I am glad, however, that clearly she is going to be vital to the plot for the next episode or two. She's going to get some good screen time. We're not just going to write her off and say, oh, she's in another section, she's in engineering, she's doing this or that. Any scene that Ruan Tarka and Book are in, she is going to be in. And that's great, because we love her.
Absolutely. She's going to have some great comments, some snarky-ass comment that Tarka will be like, oh, wow, someone who matches my intelligence. I mean, I guess they worked together already.
Yeah, not too much. I would like to see more of that. And I wonder if she will be the one to convince Book that he's not doing the best thing in this situation.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I really liked the scene with Jett and Adira. I like it when an older queer can give guidance to a younger one. So I'm all for these scenes.
And then, of course, that led to Adira sitting down with Detmer.
Which, a younger queer hanging out with an older queer.
Yeah, I like their little banter. I like how Detmer made fun of her, like, oh, I did fly good, and we can mention that every day for the rest of your life.
That was fun. This is 2 episodes in a row where we've seen Alurian drinking at the bar.
Yes. Even our friend Dr. Steve, who was on our most recent episode about podcasts, I watched this episode of Discovery with him, and he was like, hey, isn't that one of the Morns from Deep Space Nine? Like, it sure is.
Yes. We saw Grudge.
We did?
Yes, I missed it too. Shar told me Grudge is there. I'm like, what? And I looked at, in the opening thing when Michael is giving her captain's log, Grudge is sitting on her bed, laying there. And I was like, Michael, Book gave you Grudge to protect her, and then you bring her out here anyway. Like, you should have left her on the starbase with Admiral Vance.
Oh, that's a good point.
Michael, you're not a cat person.
I kind of feel like Grudge needs to come up in dialogue, because
she's a queen.
There was, well, like, for example, that much earlier episode where Book is inside the DMA and he is still grieving from Quajon, and he almost considers not leaving the area. He like just letting his ship explode, and he has to be talked down into using that programmable matter tether to get out. Somebody should have said, hey, don't do it for you. Do it for Grudge. She's on that ship too, and if you die, who will take care of her?
I mean, maybe it will still come up that way. Chekhov's Grudge.
If you see a Grudge in the first act, it must be fired by the third act. Well played. I would love to see that.
And Grudge is an important part of the opening episode of the season with the moth people. So maybe Grudge will come back into it with the 10C, or they'll be like, that creature, it just wants to pee or eat. Why did you bring it to the 10C?
I feel like we have these characters, Grudge, Zora, and Jett, who have not gotten enough screen time this season, and yet there have been hints that they are important.
Yeah.
And I would like to see how they manifest themselves in the final 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Also, as long as we're talking about Burnham's log and, generally being in her personal quarters, she had that tender moment with Culber where he admitted that he's not okay.
Yeah, he gave her a Mavi, which I had to look it up. It's a Puerto Rican drink. I saw that people very happy to see that represented on TV. It meant a lot to them. But yeah, the scene where he's like, yeah, I'm not okay. And she's like, of course you're not okay. None of us are. But you especially.
Yeah, on one hand, you don't want to dismiss him by saying, you and everybody else, what makes you special? Because what he's experiencing is unique. He feels responsible for the mental health of everybody on the ship, which is an impossible task, as Paul pointed out to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important to have somebody in that position acknowledge the weight. I mean, I've seen multiple therapists in my life, and fortunately, I have never had anything too egregious to burden them with, but I nonetheless have to wonder, how do they go home and not just dwell on everything they've heard? Because somebody who, like me, who's very sensitive and internalizes a lot of things, that would be a very difficult profession for me. And I have to hope that they have, in their education and their training, have learned to put up some shields and partition themselves from everything they hear. And I don't know if Culber did that, because he started this series back in season 1 as a medical doctor, and maybe he doesn't have the training to be a mental health therapist, and that would...
I think maybe, but I feel like more like they're just like, oh, we should add this into the character. But I do know some people who went into psychology, because I used to be a psych minor myself, who quit because they're like, I can't separate myself from this. I've tried.
Mm-hmm.
So you are exactly right. That does happen.
And maybe, like you, they recognize that before they get too far.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else?
Nope. This is my worst episode of the season, even if there are parts I liked.
Well, let me ask you this. What could they have done differently?
No idea. It wasn't interesting. They didn't convince me of their things. So convince me going to the planet was a good idea. Book and Tarka, boring on this one. They didn't do anything to make me convince me that their thing was a good idea.
I mean, they did kneel down before transporting. That was pretty cool.
Like I said, there's parts I like. Like, you don't see that. And I like that. Tarka's like, is this some kind of Ouija thing? He's like, no, I just like my torso. And you see, and they beam, and then you see why, because they're in a Jeffries tube.
That payoff it took a bit, because when he first said it, I was like, wait, what? Does he just not trust transporters? And then they beam in, and I was like, oh, now I get it. That took me a second, of course. But I also have to wonder, what would have happened if Tarka had not knelt down? You have to assume that the transporter has safeties built in where you would not beam into a hull and lose your torso.
I think Book would have just said, get down. He would have actually just said it, but Book actually kneeled down. I think probably would have just said, hey, nope, we'll get you to the nearest location.
Do you remember an early episode of TNG? I think it was the one with the dying scientist who implanted his personality into Data because he wanted to live forever.
No. That was a different one.
And I think they did like a transport at warp. And it was just in the opening scene. It was just like, oh, we need to drop you off at this plant, but we don't have time to slow down, so we're going to transport you at warp. And when they beamed in, I think it was like Worf said, for a moment there, it felt like I was in that wall. And Geordi said, for a moment, you were. Because the transporter had to recalibrate because it's a risky maneuver or something. I don't think we've seen it since.
No, near warp transport, I think it was called, and it was like a season 1 or season 2 thing. To sound neat, and they never touched it again.
Yeah. Just early Star Trek is just playing with things to see what they can do and get away with and how things work, and just like later on, as Star Trek becomes a thing and it catches on, they're like, oh, we need to make all those earlier experiments consistent somehow. Like, how come Kirk was going at warp 13 and now the most you can go is warp 9.95?
Yeah.
We'll come up with an explanation for that. And so I guess they're trying, let's see if we can do near warp transports. And we're like, nope, let's never mention that again. Live and learn. Anyway. Well, that's all I got this week.
Yeah, I don't have much either. I was like, this is the most excitement I can get for this muster for this episode.
I mean, I didn't dislike it at all. I thought it was a good episode. I would have to really sit down and think about what was my least favorite episode of this season, but I can pretty conclusively say it wasn't this one. I can't tell you where in the ranking it is, but for me, this was not the worst.
Yeah, till next week we got 2 left, and then just Picard, and then we got Strange New Worlds.
Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot to be seen, to be done. Oh, by the way, Memory Alpha has separate entries for Banana Pancake and Banana Split. Those are separate from
all
Banana.
right, Memory Alpha writers, good job.
So it's not. They should have separate entries for steamed bananas and hot bananas, but they don't.
You can fix that
Anyway.
whenever you're ready.
Oh, you're right. Oh no, more things for me to do. So yeah, we haven't seen species 10C. We suspect that they are now massive. They hide in a hyperfield because their planet was destroyed 1,000 years ago. We don't know how long lived they are, if these are direct descendants or survivors of that attack. It's possible that they don't understand what the DMA is doing because they are physically existing on such a different scale. They're clearly also more technologically advanced, which we already knew, but there are Dyson rings around the sun, which for some reason doesn't give them enough energy to maintain the hyperfield, such that they still need to create the DMA. So yeah, I am really curious to know how they're going to get into the hyperfield and what they're going to find on the other side and what that communication looks like. Because view screens and holograms are really good at conveying audio-visual. How do you communicate pheromones at distance?
Yeah, that's a good science question. We're going to science the heck out of it.
Yeah, and for this point in the series, it's an entirely rhetorical question. I'm not asking you, Sabriel, for an answer, but it's something that they're going to need to contend with unless they want to beam into where these aliens are. And that's assuming that the aliens exist in cities and ships, which we assume they do because we saw structures on the planet, but they might be so big, and the fact that they were in a gas giant, to your point earlier, that they might just swim around. Maybe they are like space whales, which we know from season 1 of Discovery is also a thing. But maybe they just exist in space in a hyperfield, and there's nowhere for Discovery members to beam to.
Yeah.
Unless they want to be like Jonah and beam directly into the whale. So yeah, there is a lot culminating in the next 2 episodes, which is, of course, how serial series work. But yeah, I am eager and curious to see what comes next.
Me too.
Until next time.
Oh, sorry, I was saying goodbye with pheromones.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on iTunes and keep your hailing frequencies open by following us on Twitter @TransporterLock or subscribing to our podcast and email newsletter at transporterlock.com.
All right, let's see. We're recording, and I already lost my app. Where's my app? Oh my God, why are you like this? We've talked about this. Okay, here we go. Hello and welcome to Transporter Lock. I don't know.